After centuries of misguidance caused by slavery, colonization, lack of awareness of our history, and institutional disinformation, a new Africa is on the move, determined and getting organized. Afrika tuko pamoja. Welcome to the United Kingdoms of Great Africa. The United Kingdoms of Great Africa is the credo of the alliance movement of all African intelligences around a common ideal, the unity and development of a strong, conquering and completely de-dogmatized Africa through the channel of a strong organization called the Africa We Want Global. You are an African, Afro-descendant, researcher, historian, scientist, or simply an NGO. You want to be part of this great historical march towards the total freedom of an uninhibited Africa? Visit our website www.africawewantglobal.org. Register and discover the range of our platforms for change. AfricaWeWantGlobal.org. Join the kingdom, be part of it. An initiative of Dr. Susan Tata.
Shifted is to close. So we are live on the Pan-African Daily TV this afternoon, this evening, wherever you're watching from. If you're connecting from the Caribbean or the United States or Haiti or Europe, I just want to say good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you out there. But in Europe, it's almost 8 p.m. Central Eastern Time. And on the continent where our honorable exclusive guest is sitting, it should be in South Africa, be at 9 or 9 p.m. out there. So we want to welcome all of you from wherever you are connecting. And thank you already. We can already see, even just as we are dropping in, a lot of people are already anxiously waiting. South Africans are watching, they are peeping in and asking, are we live now? Is it really real that he is there? Yes, you can see him comfortably sitting in the royal position, ready to actually blow it out to us. What is it that we'll be talking about this today and in the couple of days to come? We want to talk about the African calendar. I mean, Dr. King Maponga was here 2 days ago and promised us that he was going to give us a big correspondent and a lecturer who is going to take us on the series of the African calendar, African seasons, African signs, African days, African celebrations. Indigenous, because today we see everything has been mixed up. And like I posted in the press release, before the white men came to divide Africa, what were our ancestors actually celebrating? What seasons? I mean, before the St. Valentine's, before the Christmas, before the Easter period, before all this kind of, the modern Africa or the after colonial Africa celebrations, what were our ancestors celebrating? What calendar did they refer to? Did we even know that we had our own calendar? No, we have been busy and so focused on branding and promoting and inheriting cultures that actually were introduced to us after colonization. But today and in the days to come, we want to get a study about how did we live before the colonial masters came to us, before the West came to us, before the white man came to us. When I was growing up in primary school, we sang this song. We were one before the white man came with his big sense and divided us into pieces, right? Yes. So, but before that oneness, what signs, what symbols, what were our sangomas? We know about our honorable late ancestor, Credo Mutua. What did he warn us about all these things? What is it that we did not pay attention to? Now, we do this for the sake of history. And so we are going to listen to our exclusive teacher, leader for today. He is the CEO of the Nziwa Mandela Foundation, and he is called Mkhulu Nsingiza. Nsingiza. Yes. No, please. I wanted to use this South African tongue, but it's not coming out.
Yes, Queen. Yes, Queen.
So thank you so much, and welcome to the Pan-African Daily TV, and it's a pleasure to have you here. We will just sit back, relax, and listen to who you are, what you've been doing, what's the African calendar about, what is the foundation about, who is Nzinzi Mandela. A lot of people don't know what's the daughter, late daughter of ancestor Nelson Mandela. And yeah, so everything that you want us to start with this series on the African calendar, over to you, yes. My king. Bayete.
Greetings, my queen. In our culture, we say Vugas.
Okay.
When we greet the queen. I would also like to thank my brother, Joshua, Maponga, King Maponga, for trying his best to assist in terms of, conscientizing African people about the importance of the period we call pre-colonial period. Because, in the nearest past, a lot of people have done a mistake whereby they specialize or they researched more the political history of the continent, and they ignored, a period before we were colonized. Before we were colonized, I'll start with, maybe introducing myself. I'm Mkhulu Nsingiza, the CEO of the Zinzi Mandela Foundation. The Zinzi Mandela Foundation was actually, created or formed to respond positively to what we saw on the continent as being a major crisis, which is, the identity crisis of Africans, in general. And now we then embarked, on a journey of doing a lot of research myself, and long live the Queen Zinzi Mandela, starting with Ubabu Credo Mutwa. That's our teacher. That's the person who opened our eyes for us to know everything, even about the calendar. We never knew that we are hosting here on the southern part of the continent the oldest stone calendar in the world, which is here in Zalo. It's called Inzalo Elanga here in Mpumalanga, in South Africa. So we give thanks to Ubabu Credo City Vusa Mazulu, the great teacher, the great father, who tried, to actually open our eyes, even though the timing, wasn't that great. Then, when we formed, the foundation with Queen, Zinzi, it was, like I said, to respond to this, a problem of crisis, identity crisis on the continent, whereby we cannot move. Why? Because every time our departure from where we are, it's either based on politics or it's either based on religion. And we've seen that, both these institutions, both religion as well as, politics, they will never unite, Africans. The only way that, it was best for us to do was to then dig more, into the past to find out what were we doing as Africans before the colonizers came on the continent. And we found a lot of gold, in terms of, knowledge and information. I never knew that, there's nothing that is called a Western civilization. Through Babu Credo, through authors like George James, Stolen Legacy, it was clear that there's nothing that is called Western civilization, because our teachers told us that most or all of these Romans and the Greek philosophers were taught by Africans. So there's only African civilization. I mean, it was an eye-opener to me, myself, And from then, I was never the same. I kept going back, until, you know, we came across what is called, you know, Kemet, ancient, you know, Egypt. That is where I think, you know, like Babu Credo would say, the bud opens, because that gives you so much confidence, you know, as an African person, and it lifts up your sense of worth, you know, to know that you are born by great people like, you know, Imhotep, Amunhotep, you know, Abonzinga, Queen Asantewa, Queen Mantatise here in South Africa, people who have actually lived, you know, according to the dictates of nature, because this is how we are. You know, we are nature driven, you know, and, you know, we are children of the sun, you know, people with melanin. So that is very important for Africans, you know, to actually discover. I mean, we are still in that, you know, process of decolonizing the mindset, you know, of the people. So after, you know, we then collected all the information and read and listened to a lot of people, especially people outside South Africa. You know, Professor Small, you once interviewed. We listened to Phil Valentine. We listened to Ivan van Sertima. We listened to our greatest, you know, motivator, was both motivators, was both Ubabu Credo and as well as Sheikh Anta Diop, you know, as well as, you know, Theophilo Benga. Those, you know, were people who gave us enough ammunition, you know, for us to actually try and dismantle this myth that Africa is a dark continent. Africa never produced anything. So we then, you know, decided that, okay, fine, we have collated enough information, but where do we start? We knew that we can never rush to start on the economic programs before we decolonize the mindset of our people, so that we go back to who we are, you know, our character as African people, you know, so that, you know, when we move forward based on everything that is African, even the content. I mean, you know, there's so much knowledge on the continent, right from here, South Africa. Babu Credo confirmed that, you know, the very same people who established the oldest calendar in the world started here in the southern part, you know, of Kemet. We call it Kemet. We no longer call it Africa. In the southern part of Kemet, that is, you know, confirmed by that, you know, megalithic, you know, structures in Mpumalanga. We call in Zaloyelanga the oldest calendar. And also, there is what is called the Libombo bone. You know, Libombo bone is supposed to be older than the Shango bone, which then confirms that it's the very same people who started here in the South, then took this knowledge and information and go and refine it all over the continent until they reached, you know, the upper, you know, the northern part of the continent, you know, which is called now Egypt. There it was then refined, you know. That is why we're able, you know, to actually excel in our architecture, excel in our science, excel in almost everything. Why? Because I always say that South Africa today, it's, you know, like what used to be in Kemet then, because South Africa hosts all, you know, people of the continent are here, especially in Joburg. We have everybody of the continent. So if you look at that situation, it's now repeating itself, you know, because then it was Egypt. We were all assembled in Egypt before the colonizers came, you know, to actually fight us until we left our original place, which is, you know, Egypt. But that is a discussion for another day. I was just trying to give just a, you know, a summary of the background, the motivation behind what Queen Nsingiza, you know, Mandela, a vision, you know, for African people. She wanted to see a united Africa, but unfortunately, her efforts, you know, and time, or the creator didn't afford it, you know, that time to see that vision. But she left us that legacy that, you know, the focus should be Africa and Africans. You know, that is what you guys need to deal with. You try and resolve all these problems. But the most important thing is African unity. Once we can achieve African unity, and you know, she then said, out of all the information that we've collated, we should start with the calendar, because the calendar is neutral. You know, it doesn't ask what church, you know, do you belong to, what political, you know, philosophy or political school do you belong to, because this is what has been dividing Africans for all these centuries. And when you project the future, you know, there's no hope that any president on the continent is willing to surrender power for the benefit of the rest of the continent. So it means, Wuti, as African people, we are messed up for the future, because you can't project a future where you see that, you know, no movement will happen as long as we are still under these republics on the continent. Remember, these republics are a thuggery. You know, this is how they justify, you know, stealing our land, stealing our wealth to form these republics. So it's one thing that we still need to deal with, you know, because we have our own form of governance, you know, on the continent, which is African royalty. There's no reason why we can't clean that house now. Yes, that house, it might be dirty, it needs our attention, but that is the structure which, you know, we need to revive. That is the structure which is linked to our ancestry. All our, you know, the kings and, you know, queens that died in defense of the land. So we need to resuscitate that structure for Africa to be okay, you know, again. But that will take a long time, because it needs a lot of decisions from the very same people who decided to preside over, you know, the republics we call theft. That is theft. You know, all these, you know, president of the continent, they made a conscious decision that I'm going to preside over this theft. And without them, you know, even considering how much, you know, damage they are doing, not only, you know, to their country, but to the rest of the continent. Because when it started with Kwame Nkrumah accepting the republic, it then ended up being accepted even here in South Africa. And these republics, that is the root of our problem as you know, African people, because our wealth, you know, and our land are still, you know, kept under these structures. So it's something that we'll have to deal with, you know, in future. But just, you know, coming now, explaining about the calendar. The calendar, as I said, you know, and Njovukazi, it's based on the oldest stone calendar, you know, that is here in South Africa, in a place called Mpumalanga. And that calendar was based on the solstices as well as the equinoxes. You find the same calendar in, you know, Ethiopia. You find the same calendar, I don't know whether it's Kenya or Tanzania, but you find the same calendar even in Egypt, all these calendars, the markers are the solstices and the equinoxes. So our real calendar will need our African, what do they call, these people that studies the stars. I don't know what they call them, but we will need our own scientists to actually readjust, because what we have revived. Remember, the calendar we're talking about, it's old. It's not, we're not bringing something new. We're bringing something that was there before the colonizers. And based on the way that we named our months, in our calendar, because the months, they reflect what happens in the environment. So I find that is common amongst all Africans. So that calendar, this is the calendar we are reviving, based on the equinoxes and the solstices. And when we check, that September is a special month for the continent, because that is when even the Ethiopians celebrate their New Year.
Absolutely.
And Ethiopia is just next door, Egypt. So
Yes.
it means that this calendar affects all Africans, from Egypt to South Africa. And that calendar, which is based on the equinoxes. The equinoxes, the 23rd, it's when a sun, after the 22nd, where the Earth energy reaches equilibrium. That is why we call it the equinox, meaning what the night and day are equal on that day. So on the 23rd, it makes 1 degree southwards. Remember, we are on the southern hemisphere, and the colonizers gave us a calendar which is based on the northern hemisphere, meaning that everything that we've been doing ever since, it's going against nature. When we're supposed to be kneeling, we're not kneeling. When we're supposed to be walking, we are kneeling. I'll make an example. The Christmas ceremony doesn't make sense for us on the southern hemisphere, because that is a winter ceremony for the northern hemisphere, right? That is why you'll find that people who are wearing these jackets, during December, all over the continent, they're sweating. Why? Because they're not supposed to be wearing those heavy jackets of Father Christmas. So that is a northern, hemisphere calendar, and it's a northern hemisphere ceremony. This is, how they welcome the sun, because the sun on the 23rd of December begins its journey. It's now leaving the southern hemisphere and beginning the journey going towards the northern hemisphere. Then that period is confirmed on the 21st of March. On the 21st of March, the sun begins its journey now, officially moving away from the southern hemisphere. So it takes 3 days for the sun to traverse what is called the imaginary line of the equator, meaning that it leaves the southern hemisphere on the 21st. So it's the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd. It's now on the northern hemisphere. Then we then say winter has started on the southern hemisphere, because the nurturing energy of the sun is no longer with us. Then the very same period, or the very same thing happens for us on the southern hemisphere, what is supposed to be called Christmas for the northern hemisphere. It happens for us on the 21st of June. On the 21st of June, it's when the sun, it's at its lowest point, but on that day, it's making a return. meaning now it's beginning a journey moving towards the southern hemisphere. And that period is then confirmed. On the 21st of September, the sun officially leaves the northern hemisphere, traverses through the imaginary line of the equator, then makes 1 degree southwards. On the 23rd of September, we call the African New Year. Yes, Queen.
Wow. Yes, and it's 7 years even behind from the calendar, because if we look at the Ethiopian New Year, it's always 7 years behind. Like last year, they celebrated 2017.
Yes, Queen. Now in South Africa, we have engaged, the Department of Science and Technology. We have engaged a structure of government called the Indigenous Knowledge System for them to assist us in terms of calculating the age of the site. In that place we call Inzalo Yelanga, the birth, a place of the sun, here in Mpumalanga in South Africa. So we are hoping so that once that, because it can be carbon dated because of the rocks they use. They rely on the wearing off or the tearing off of those blocks, the erosion that happens. Then it assists them to then calculate and estimate, the date, because that should be our ZTP, the beginnings. Once we have that date, we will be able to actually confirm, as to what year it is, based on that, calendar in Mpumalanga here in South Africa.